Benjamin Impossible. Chapter 29. The House Tour. The submarine was dark inside, so Benjamin and Lemon-Time switched on their suit lights and looked around. "What is this room?" Lemon-Time asked as he floated down into the dark cavern. His light illuminated huge steel drums and pipes that ran along the walls. The majority of the room was taken up by a vast, round machine. It was cylindrical and contained walkways that ran down its side, dividing the space into several levels. "This is the engine room," Benjamin said, glancing around. "This big apparatus is the turbine motor. It converts heat from the nuclear reactor to create steam-powered propulsion for the drive shaft over there." "Steam power?" Lemon-Time asked. "That sounds old-fashioned." "Not really," Benjamin explained. "This isn't like the old steam engines that powered trains and steamboats. The heat in this engine comes from the nuclear reactor, not from burning wood or coal. This engine needs no oxygen and produces no gas emissions. In fact, this nuclear steam engine will run for years and years without needing to be refueled." Lemon-Time floated over to one of the catwalks and grabbed onto a safety rail to keep from ramming into the giant machine. "If nuclear-powered engines like this are so great, why don't we see them used more often? I know we use them on aircraft carriers, but why don't they use this technology on cruise boats and cargo ships?" "It's too expensive, Captain. The government doesn't release weapons-grade uranium willingly, and the amount of shielding needed to contain the radiation is costly. Plus, you have the problem of nuclear waste disposal after you decommission the ship. This puts nuclear-powered vessels outside the realm of anyone but a large government." "Or a thief, like Dr. Glockenspiel." Benjamin looked around, admiring the mechanical marvel. "It makes you wonder, though, about the future of nuclear power. If we could build nuclear power plants in space or on the moon, that would eliminate a lot of nuclear power's disadvantages. A meltdown in space couldn't hurt the environment, and disposal of nuclear waste would be easy. You could just launch the spent uranium into the sun or fling it out of the solar system entirely." Lemon-Time pointed. "Movement, over there!" Benjamin whirled, his capacitor cannon out. He used one hand to pull himself to one of the catwalks, and his electromagnetic boots stuck to the walkway. Creeping forward, he peered around a corner to see one of Glockenspiel's robots. The robot wore a white sailor uniform and sat at a control station, watching dials and blinking lights. Benjamin was within its field of view, but the automaton seemed to be ignoring him, engrossed in the task before him. The robot was also talking to itself. "Core temperature holding, pressure normal," the robot droned in its monotonous voice. "Propeller at 0 rotations per minute, heat diverted to power generator, all systems normal." Benjamin waved his hands in front of the robot, but it didn't seem to notice him. "I guess this Donald Duck robot controls the engine room," Benjamin said. "Glockenspiel must have programmed each of his robots to control different parts of the submarine. This guy seems to be running on autopilot." Lemon-Time brought out his club. "Do we smash him?" The boy shook his head. "I don't think so. He hasn't attacked us. Who knows? Maybe we'll need this robot to operate the submarine after we take down Glockenspiel." "What does he need to operate?" the captain asked, pointing at the room around them. "This is the engine room that drives the submarine's propeller. We're floating in space right now, so why do we need a propeller?" Benjamin pointed at a power gauge. "The steam turbine also powers the generator that supplies electricity to the submarine's electronics and life support systems. Charlie needs those systems working so he can breathe." "Life support systems?" Lemon-Time asked. "Does that mean this room has air in it?" "Of course," Benjamin nodded. "There has to be air in here, or we wouldn't have heard the robot speaking just now. Sound doesn't travel through a vacuum, you know." Lemon-Time reached up to unbuckle his helmet. "Good, because I need to clean the pee out of my helmet." Benjamin held his hand up. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Captain. Glockenspiel could purge the oxygen in here and knock you out. Besides, look over there." The boy pointed to a large steel drum bolted to the wall. A sticker on the side had the formula H2O2 written on it. Lemon-Time shrugged. "So what? It's a giant barrel of water." Benjamin shook his head sadly. "Captain, do you know nothing about chemistry? The formula for water is H2O. That barrel contains H2O2, which is the formula for hydrogen peroxide." "Hydrogen peroxide? Isn't that the bubbling disinfectant that people pour on wounds?" Benjamin nodded. Yes, you can buy diluted peroxide at the pharmacy to treat minor cuts and scrapes. High-concentration peroxide is also used as rocket fuel. When you add a catalyst, it explosively converts back to water and oxygen. Benjamin tapped on Lementime's helmet. I would keep your helmet on. If Glockenspiel releases high-concentration peroxide in this room, the caustic fluid will disinfect your eyes out. Lementime looked at the barrels with appreciation. Okay, I'm convinced. But why does he need rocket fuel? Doesn't he have a supply of hyperhelium to get into space? Sure, but, like you said, his submarine's giant propeller can't move him around while in space. He needs rocket fuel to push himself into orbit and to direct his ship when he's not floating underwater. Lementime looked around. Okay, where to next? This place gives me the creeps. Also, I expected a lot more resistance. Me too, Benjamin said. He tapped his watch and made a radio connection to Noah, checking the video feed from the dog's cameras. So far, no action on the underbelly of the submarine. Noah, I want you to fly a few miles away and work your way toward the front of the submarine. Give me a visual of the ship's bow, but stay out of range of those deck cannons. The robotic dog barked over the radio connection and activated his jets. Benjamin then pointed forward. The catwalk they stood on led to a closed hatch. I suggest we go that way, toward the front of the ship. That is surely where Glockenspiel is holding my brother captive. The hatch was unlocked, so Benjamin and the captain slogged their way forward. They passed the large nuclear reactor, which was tended by several more robots. Benjamin circumspectly stood behind the captain until he could confirm that the radiation levels were normal on his Geiger counter. The next room contained a furnace. Robots wearing asbestos armor stood before a fiery oven. Heat emanated from the forge, reflecting red light and casting strange shadows on the walls. Even within his insulated spacesuit, Lementime could feel the hellish temperature being produced. What are they doing? Lementime asked. Melting metal for spare parts? I'm not sure, Benjamin responded, stepping closer for a better view. I think they are melting sand in that crucible. They must be making pure silica glass. Maybe Glockenspiel likes to make his own crystal chandeliers? A robot opened the furnace door, reaching inside to extract a glob of molten glass from the blazing inferno. Holding the melted glass aloft, the glowing blob hovered weightlessly in space, rotating and spinning playfully. With expert precision, another robot plunged a metallic syringe into the molten glass, injecting a mysterious substance into the orb. The luminous sphere wobbled momentarily, then radiated blue light, which gradually dimmed as the glass orb cooled to room temperature. Astonishing, Benjamin said, gesturing toward the scene. Glockenspiel has these robots doping silicon. Pardon? Lementime asked, confused. What are you talking about? Benjamin nodded toward the spectacle before them. This is how computer chips are manufactured on Earth. You melt silicon sand or crushed toy marbles and heat it to an extreme temperature to eliminate the oxygen. Then you dope the glass with rare metals to obtain the necessary properties for creating a microchip. Glockenspiel is fabricating his own computer chips for his robots? Lementime asked. Benjamin shook his head. No, this is next-level stuff. On Earth, we're limited by gravity, so we slice our silicon into layers to produce flat computer chips. But here, in the low gravity of space, a different kind of silicon can be made, spherical, with volumetrically greater complexity. The storage capacity of this design would be mind-boggling. Benjamin gestured at the small silicon sphere, roughly the size of a hen's egg. The little ball had cooled, and the robot carefully placed it into a cushioned rack alongside other similar orbs. That sphere could revolutionize computing as we know it, assuming one could imprint circuitry into the silica at a high enough resolution. Great, Lementime grumbled. Glockenspiel is a mad robot and a computer chip genius to boot? Benjamin wasn't sure. He had to begrudgingly acknowledge Glockenspiel's genius. It was almost equal to his own. But computer chip design was pretty complicated. Glockenspiel must have gotten help to design such a thing. Maybe that was why Glockenspiel wanted his brother. Thinking of Charlie Impossible, Benjamin grimaced. Come on, Captain, let's keep moving. Advancing through yet another secured entrance, they cautiously lifted their blasters. A vast walkway stretched before them, flanked on both sides by innumerable rows of dormant robots. These mechanical beings stood poised and motionless, a silent army awaiting activation. Lemon whipped out his club. Looks like it's time to fight. I don't think so, Captain. These robots aren't moving. I think this is the ship's sleeping quarters where the submarine's human crew would normally sleep. Glockenspiel seems to have converted it into a robot storage compartment. Benjamin walked up to the closest robot and inspected it. The mechanical man stood still, eyes staring forward. Benjamin looked down and pointed. Look, I think the robots are standing on magnetic charging plates. They probably charge their internal batteries through induction points on the soles of their feet. Fascinating, Lemon muttered, looking at the metal horde with a nervous eye. I think we should get out of here. If these things come to life, we'll be in trouble standing in the middle of them like this. Oh, relax. We can take them. All they have are those killer laser beams in their heads. Our suits' cooling systems can shrug off the heat, or at least, they can give us enough time to escape. Those lasers still freaking hurt, even with the spacesuits protecting us, Lemon lamented. Why didn't Glockenspiel put other types of weapons on these robots anyway? A machine gun or rocket launcher would be more effective. Probably a safety issue. When floating miles underwater, you don't want guns or explosive weapons to misfire and puncture the ship's protective hull. I guess that makes sense. Let's get out of here. These things give me the creeps. They look like skeletons. The two floated down the aisle, robots on either side. At last, they reached the far hatch and moved into the next compartment. Whoa, Benjamin said, looking around. The room they entered was well lit and full of equipment. Computer screens filled the walls with equipment bolted everywhere. One entire section was walled off by a protective glass screen. Looking through, they could see mechanized arms repairing a robot, flashes of light emanating from micro-torches. Computer-controlled milling machines threw chips of metal that bounced around in the low gravity. Lemon, less impressed, looked about. What is all this stuff? This, Benjamin said, sweeping his arms, is one of the coolest robotic fabrication plants I've ever seen. It makes the one in my bedroom look like a child's toy. You have your own robotic fabrication plant? Lemon asked. Sure. I built one into my closet on board the Red Zeppelin. It's great for prototyping smaller gadgets like cell phones or repairing NOAA. I farm out bigger jobs to one of our overseas factories. I do a lot of prototyping in my spare time, but I don't have anything with this kind of setup. Benjamin pointed to a machine. See that? That is a metal sintering machine. We can print anything made of metal on this thing. Anything. The Navy has been equipping their larger ships with these gadgets to help make repairs at sea. Benjamin walked over to the glass wall and looked at the activity inside. Inside the glass-protected bay, they could see one of Glockenspiel's robots bolted to a table. Its head was partially crushed, and the internal circuitry was being repaired by tiny robotic claws. You see there? That is probably one of the robots we clobbered at Fort Jefferson. That machine can cut away and weld anything back onto that robot's frame. It runs off of a 6-axis computer-controlled gimbal. Given enough supplies and raw material, Glockenspiel could create just about any mechanical device using this equipment. I am glad you like my workshop, a voice said, emanating from a speaker on the wall. Benjamin and Lemon jumped, weapons out and ready. A video image of a metallic robot appeared on a computer monitor and leered at them. They assumed the robot was Dr. Glockenspiel, for it spoke with his voice. Plus, it had a mustache. I am pleased to see you appreciate the genius of my fabrication plant. It is the most sophisticated machine shop in the solar system. Benjamin put his hands on his hips. It's pretty neat, but the most sophisticated? Please. Our fabrication plant in Beijing is twice this big and has better stepper motors. I should know, since I installed them. Glockenspiel chuckled. And where do you think I stole this equipment from? I build most of my robotic inventions from material stolen from your parents' company. Benjamin shrugged. I'm not surprised. When you are too dumb to innovate, you have to steal other people's inventions. Isn't that right, Dr. Glockenbaby Stealer? The mechanized smile vanished. Such childish antics, just like your baby brother. Benjamin pointed at the screen. You'd better not touch Charlie or you'll have me to deal with. The metal man looked genuinely amused. You? What could you possibly do to me? You are trapped in my space submarine. I have your little brother trapped in a jar, and I'm tracking your parents' location using my long-range cameras. You've already given me the hyperhelium generator and, let's face it, your track record for rescue attempts is not good. Yeah, well, I have something else to give you, Benjamin said. My space boot, up your butt! Lemon-Time rolled his eyes. Good one, kid. Glockenspiel shook his head sadly. If you think you are manly enough to fight me, then come into my den, child. With those words, a large hatch at the end of the workshop opened. Benjamin checked the video feed from Noah, searching for traps. The dog was still floating several miles in front of the ship and looking back with his telescopic cameras. The submarine's front window was visible, and he could see shapes moving inside the next room. He thought one might be Glockenspiel, but couldn't make out any details. Well, Lemon-Time, Benjamin said as he walked through the hatch, let's go kick some Glockenbutt. You've reached the end of Chapter 29. Please consider liking this video or maybe leave a comment. Then, proceed to Chapter 30, The Spider's Web.